Welcome, everybody. I am Isha Das, the spiritual director of the Assisi Institute in Rochester, New York. I'm so glad you are joining us for this very important podcast. We're going to be wrestling today with the yogic notion of the Eternal Dharma, or the path of eternal righteousness. It really is a series of truths that are part and parcel of all of the world's religions. And helping us to wrestle with this topic of the Eternal Dharma is Swami Nirvanananda from Italy. Swami is part of the Saraswati tradition. He's also a Kriya Yoga teacher. And he also heads up and has founded a foundation, Shantipuri Foundation, that helps to educate and take care of children of lepers in India. They also take young women off the streets and give them an education and teach them a way of living and taking care of themselves in the world. I like to say that he is a holy man and even a saint. And so he's going to be helping us in our conversation today. Before I turn it over to him, let me just say why this whole topic of Dharma is so important. I've been a practicing psychotherapist for over 40 years. And particularly over the last 10 or 15 years, I have noticed this theme with young people that come to see me, people, let's say 40 and younger. And they weren't raised in any religious tradition. They don't have a sense of how life works from an eternal truth perspective. And often they don't have any deep psychological issues, but they don't have a sense of how life works. They don't have a sense of what the fundamental truths are that serve our positive evolution. And not only do I see this in individuals, I see it in the collective consciousness of our culture. There's so much division. There's so much degeneration of these core values that our whole culture is in, seems to be in decline, and again, in a state of degeneration. So Swami, I know you have a wonderful definition of the Eternal Dharma taken from Paramahansa Yogananda. Would you please share that with us now?
Oh, yes. Namaste. I'm so happy to be part of this conversation with you, Ishadas. Of course, the best moment is to start with the words of the Divine Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. I will just read from what he wrote about Dharma. Dharma is a term which encompasses both natural laws and eternal truth, thus maintaining the divine order of the universe and of the man who represent it on earth. In this way, the Samkhya philosophy defines true religion as those immutable principles which permanently protect man from the threefold aspects of suffering. That means disease, unhappiness, and ignorance. The vast collection of Vedic teachings of India is grouped under the generic term of Sanatana Dharma, or eternal religion. These eternal principles of justice uphold and maintain all creation. They represent the duty man has inherited to live in harmony and in accordance with these principles. So I think there is not a better way to define Dharma, as Yogananda says, the immutable principle that protect man from the threefold aspect of suffering. So this is our protection. This is a protection for the whole universe and for humankind. Don't you think so?
Oh, absolutely. And so how I like to position this conversation, and I'm really just echoing what you just said and what Yogananda said, is when we talk about eternal truths, people sometimes tend to see that as something oppressive.
Yes.
Something that somehow clamps down on our humanity. And it's really just the opposite. To the degree that we embrace these eternal truths and we organize our lives according to them, we become happier and we become healthier really on every level. So they're not something that oppresses us. They're actually something that liberates us and helps us to be our best self.
Yes, yes, I agree. And that's why it is so important that Dharma has to be reconsidered, rediscovered, and make a principle of the life of every human being, I would say like this.
Yeah. One of the things I think we're up against when we talk about Dharma is we've lost the notion of truth in our culture. Everything is subjective. Everything is what I feel to be true. And not that feelings and subjectivity are not important. But when we're talking about Dharma, we're talking about something that transcends cultures.
Yes.
And transcends our personal feelings. It is the really real, the ultimate real, the ultimate reality. And it's true everywhere and in all places, all at the same time. If we don't have a sense of this eternal Dharma, then we make ourselves the center of the universe. In a sense, we make ourselves God. And by creating our own values and our own truths, literally out of thin air.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
It is true. That's why we, let's say, are from the Christian tradition, and we speak about the Ten Commandments, and we miss the beauty of this. I would say it's not only what has to be done and not to be done, but this is the joy to rediscover a mean, because these are the best mean to live a wonderful, perfect, and balanced life.
Yeah. One of the things I like to point out to people is that creation on the material level, for example, has a certain order. So, for example, if I remember from my chemistry days, gold, like an atom of gold, has 79 protons and 79 electrons. That's what makes gold gold. That, I'll say it this way, that God has created nature. God has created creation with an exactness. And it's not only true on the physical level, it's true on the moral level, it's true on the human level, that there are these immutable principles that are true, again, everywhere and at all time. And when we organize our lives according to these principles, as you were saying, that really helps to create a life of meaning, a life of truth, a life of beauty, a life of goodness, a life of joy.
Yes. Yes, I would like to also consider, for instance, how scientific it should be. Because, for instance, in physics, our scientists, they say we have the four fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and the weak nuclear force. So the same way, I would say the Rishi in the old times of India, they discovered the fundamental forces, and they call it yamas and niyamas. So it is very, very scientific, and it's in the same way the science is helping to develop the technology. The same way we could use yamas and niyama to make our lives perfect.
Do you want to say a little bit about the yamas and the niyamas?
Yes, I can. From the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, I can just read which are the yamas, 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. They are called also the do's and don'ts. So the first is ahimsa, and means non-violence. Satya means truthfulness. Asteya means non-stealing. Brahmacharya means chastity. Aparigraha, non-possessiveness. These are the 5 yamas. Then the 5 niyamas, the don'ts, is saucha, pureness, santosha, contentment, swadhyaya, self-knowledge, tapas, penance, and ishvara pranidhan, surrender to God and Guru. So this, if we are able to base our life on these 10 principles, it's like a blooming of a new life in every living being.
And I'll just point something out that is obvious to me, and I think will be obvious to many people. It's interesting, the parallel there. If you combine the yamas and the niyamas, there are 10 of them, and that there are 10 commandments.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Yes, and I think essentially that they are speaking the very same truths. You know, one of the 10 commandments is honor your mother and your father. And one of the ways I translate that to people is that our mothers and our fathers, our ancestors, have passed on to us these wonderful truths, whether it's the yamas and the niyamas, the 10 commandments, or the beatitudes of Jesus.
Yes, true.
So at one level, honoring our mothers and our fathers is honoring the wisdom that they gave us, that they've passed on to us, that we know works. Because again, so many people, and particularly younger people, they're almost like they want to recreate the wheel. They don't have to. We have the wheel. We have the science. We have technology to guide us in every area of our lives.
Yes, I agree completely. And this, I hope it can be spread, this discovery of a new way of have a basic life on a fundamental that can be of any religion. But we see as the 5 yamas and niyamas are like the same 10 commandments. So this means there's really a universal principle. There is not something made by man, simply because a kind of society or civilization was following certain rules. These are not rules or laws of a government. These are rules from the whole universe of the cosmic creation.
I think what you're saying there is profound on a number of levels. Let me just unpack it a little bit. That these truths, the yamas and niyamas, the 10 commandments, for example, they're not created by the state. They're not created by the government. They really, at some level, reflect the very mind of God.
Yes, I agree.
If you break the word God down, the guiding, organizing, and directing mind of God in time and space. So it's the realization that they really come from a transcendental source. They come from the divine.
Yes.
And so in that sense, they are eternal, they are true, they are irrevocable. But there's also a more subtle sense to that the government does not give us, they do not create this Dharma, these eternal truths. They may protect them, they may support them, but they come from a greater source. They come from the divine.
Yes, definitely.
So let's talk about some of the yamas and the niyamas. We go through just a few of them. The first yama that you mentioned is essentially nonviolence.
Yes.
And I think most people, again, just going through these, we'll see how they apply and how they help. Most people, when they hear nonviolence or they hear the commandment, do not commit murder, they think, well, I've never murdered anyone. I don't kill people. But there's so many subtle levels to that. Our words can be violent.
Yeah.
Our words can kill somebody's reputation. Our words could kill somebody's spirit.
Yeah.
We can create despair in people by what we say. Our words can destroy our own spirit. We can be very harsh on ourselves. So the understanding that this nonviolence isn't just about physical violence. It's it's having compassion
Yeah.
in everything we do, bringing love into
Yeah.
everything we do, our thoughts, our words, and our actions, and letting love be the guiding force.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
I agree completely. That there are so many levels where the violence can be expressed that maybe we are not even aware of this. So that's why also through meditation techniques, we have to be aware of every thought, of every word, and correct ourselves so to become perfectly in tune with the divine love. That's the main order of the whole universe.
Yeah. So I think it's important to stress what you just said there, that these yamas and the niyamas, like the first one, nonviolence, they really flow out of our communion with God. So that when we have a meditation practice or we do contemplative prayer, we merge with the divine heart, we merge with the divine love, with the love of God. And then from that, it's much easier, much more natural to want to bring love into everything that we do. So it's not just you and me kind of through stoic willpower endeavoring to be nonviolent. We touch the very source of nonviolence, which is God, which is the love of God. And then from that, we choose to bring that love and that nonviolence into every area of our lives. One of the little techniques that I use that I know other people find helpful when I'm in a situation where I'm not quite sure what the most loving thing is, and I'm feeling some anger rise in me or something like that. I stop, I breathe, and I say this internal prayer: what is the most loving thing that I can do in this moment?
Yeah.
Invariably, some intuition arises that guides my thoughts, guides my speech, and guides my actions.
Yeah, this is very deep and wise that we should follow, every one of us.
Yeah.
It is.
And just to touch on the second yama, truthfulness, again, we tend to, I think, sometimes look at that at a very superficial level. It's like one of the commandments: do not bear false witness against your neighbor. And we tend to reduce it to that. But I think if we can wrestle with what is the truth in any situation and ask ourselves, what is the truth? I'd like to say it this way, that ultimately all roads lead to Rome. That's the metaphor. Every little truth that we follow leads to bigger truths, leads to bigger truths, and eventually leads to the truth, which is God. Yogananda says that truth is reality and reality is God.
Yeah.
So that if we really endeavor to name the truth to the best of our ability, to follow the truth, it opens us up to wider and wider and wider truths. And there's a line by Jesus that is very important in John's Gospel. He said, "You'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free."
Oh, yeah. So you see how important truth is, because
Yes.
it recollects us to freedom. So truth
Yes.
is freedom, and freedom is salvation.
Yes. And even in the psychological sense, in my work as a psychotherapist, people come in and they have a lot of psychological defenses because they've been hurt in life, they've been damaged, they've been wounded. So they develop this layer of psychological defenses like rationalization, denial, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And those defenses maybe helped us in the moment of the trauma in a certain way, but they really don't serve us in the long run. So part of the work of psychotherapy, for example, is helping people in the context of love and safety, but helping people to face the truth. And the more that we can ground our lives in truth, we don't need those psychological defenses. We don't need to rationalize. We don't need to deny that there's something about truth, that it's a literal force that grounds us and gives us strength and actually helps us to feel safe in the world.
It is true. It is true.
Yeah. You're going to say something?
So, yeah, I would say, because the word in Sanskrit, truth, is satya. And the root of satya is sat. Sat is one of the third aspect of God. Sat Chit Ananda. So we see how important truth is. Means not only truth as truth, but also as a reality of existence. So the divine aspect is in the Satya so beautifully expressed by the word truth.
Yes. And again, when we're grounded in truth, then what we're grounded in is ultimate reality, which means we're grounded in God. And that becomes true security. That becomes our true safety. Let me just use this example. Many years ago, I worked a lot with alcoholics. And there was always this moment of truth where they could accept their powerlessness over alcohol. They could accept the truth of their addiction. Paradoxically, that truth was the beginning of their freedom.
Your freedom, yeah.
But there's something about truth that is it's not just a cognitive thought. It's not just some belief system. That truth is actually a force that empowers us and gives us strength. It's really the force of God's mind in time and space. And so the more we aligned with the truth, our lives really come together and we experience true security and true safety. Again, one of the other techniques that I use, if I'm not sure how to proceed, or I'm not sure with what the truthful path is, I will stop and I will just say that in that internal prayer, what is the truth here? Show me what the truth is. And again, something bubbles up and you just intuitively know what the right choice is and the right direction is. And it brings peace. That's part of how you know.
Yeah.
It's truth.
Definitely.
So how does someone, Swami, kind of nurture this relationship to the eternal Dharma? How do we nurture it in our lives? How do we build our lives on it? How do we familiarize ourselves with it?
We have to rediscover the means through which our life can be changed. Because everybody, especially all those who are suffering, they need to find a tool to save them from suffering, because as we mentioned in the beginning, Yogananda say, Dharma is really destroying the three aspects of suffering. That is disease, unhappiness, and ignorance. So if we want to work on these three aspects, we will discover how the yamas and niyamas, I would say in a very perfect way, a very scientific way, can lead us to rediscover our true nature.
All right, so let me put it in this context. I like to tell this parable, and you'll see how it connects with truth. A man goes to a psychiatrist and he says, "Doc, I'm dead." And the psychiatrist says, "Oh, that's very interesting." Psychiatrist gives him this homework assignment. For the next 30 days, I want you to look in the mirror and say, "Dead men don't bleed. Dead men don't bleed." He goes home, comes back 30 days later and says, "Doc, I did exactly what you told me to do. 3 times a day, I looked in the mirror and I said, dead men don't bleed. I did that for 30 days. So the psychiatrist takes out a pin and he pricks the man's finger and blood comes out. And the man says to the psychiatrist, "Well, I'll be darned. dead men do bleed. So the question that we have, and I'm going to take this in a very practical path, is do we want what we want, or do we want the truth? Because there's always going to be a part of us, the egoic part of the personality, that is going to want to take the path of least resistance. It's going to want to avoid any discomfort at all, even if it means sacrificing the truth. So first of all, we have to ask ourselves, do we want the truth, or do we want what we want? That's number one. Secondly, if we want the truth, where do we find it? And what I like to say, it's the mystics of the world who were most in touch with the truth.
Yeah.
They didn't want what they wanted. They wanted only the truth. And they were so transparent to the divine and the truth that the truth came through them. So what I tell people, if you want to get a flavor, if you want to understand the truth, read the world's great scriptures. You can read it, the Bhagavad Gita in the Hindu tradition. Truth comes through. The words of Jesus, truth comes through. So that if we want to, again, familiarize ourselves with truth, to get that intuitive sense, we just have to read the world's scriptures, read the words of the great saints and the great mystics, because again, I think they were completely transparent to truth. And then as we read them, we develop this sort of intuitive capacity to know the truth and how to apply it in our lives. We don't have to create the wheel all over again. We just have to attune ourselves to these traditions of great truth. So that's what I tell people: read the scriptures, read the Bhagavad Gita, read the writings of a great mystic or saint, and you will begin to recognize and understand and intuit the truth. Any thoughts about that?
Yes, especially I would say the Bhagavad Gita is a wonderful source of explaining that because, for instance, Krishna is saying whenever the Dharma declines, then God is sending a new avatar to reestablish the divine law. So we are really in a very moment of turmoil in our society, and but this avatar can be incarnated in each one of us, expressing this divine principle of yama and niyama. So everybody can be a part of this second coming of Christ, I would say.
Yeah, the more that each one of us, the more we align ourselves with this stream of truth, then yes, we become collectively the guru. We become collectively that voice of truth. So it really begins with us. So it's not just about me evolving my life. It's the more that I live according to truth, beauty, and goodness, the more I live my life according to love and truth, then the collective consciousness of the human race somehow is elevated. Yeah. Because we're all connected.
Yes. And we reach all together. It is just like a jump of the whole society into a new world, a new way of living, a new, I would say, paradise on earth. Because our life has been all filtered by all this shade and all the bad thoughts and deeds that many are in an ignorant way they are doing, because they don't know what really it means. So I think the first thing that has to be cured is ignorance.
Yes. So let me talk a little bit, particularly from the tradition of Kriya Yoga, but also mystical Christianity, how we heal from ignorance. And one piece is meditation. And in Kriya Yoga and in the mystical traditions of the West, we don't just meditate to help the nervous system. That's part of it, but that's not primarily why we meditate. We meditate in part to go into the silence and the stillness. And let me say how that works with truth. When we go into the silence and the stillness, we are, in a sense, separating ourselves from our distortions. We're separating ourselves from ignorance. We're separating ourselves from our ideologies. When we experience even a moment of contemplative silence, meditative silence, all of those distorted voices go away.
Yeah.
And in that silence, then there's an openness, a letting go of our distortions, which necessarily makes us open to truth.
Mm-hmm.
So something that Yogananda said, that what you experience in meditation, take with you into activity. And what he meant was hold a little bit of that silence and a little bit of that stillness, a little bit of that watchfulness as you move through your day. And in that stillness, truth can again bubble up.
Yeah.
Intuitions will bubble up. And I said this before, but I want to stress it in a slightly different way. One of the things I will often do after a meditation, I will read the words of Yogananda. I will read the words of Jesus.
Yeah.
And out of that silence, there's something about their words that can take hold. There's so much noise around us and inside of us, so that if we have that sense of stillness, that contemplative mind, and then we read the words again of Jesus or Yogananda, we can more easily discern the truth. But let me just use this example, and it's true of my wife and it's true of you. My wife has been musically trained since she was a little girl. She studied music. Her undergraduate degree is in music. And I'm always fascinated because she can hear somebody sing and she knows, or play an instrument, and she knows when they're on or off, when they've missed a note, because her musical ear is so well tuned. So the more we go into that meditative silence, the more we contemplate and meditate the words of a great saint like Yogananda, the Bhagavad Gita, the words of Jesus, we develop this inner attunement with truth. And we can hear it and we can see it and we can recognize it. It makes it much easier to follow.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Meditation is the best and perfect instrument to tune our ear to the music of the divine. It is true. It is wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. There's something in that silence where, again, we let go of all of our opinions. We let go of all of our holy cows, so to speak.
Yes.
And in that letting go and in that silence, we're open to fresh perspectives. We're open to truth in a way that we're not otherwise open to it.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I suggest to people is, if you watch the news, for example, for an hour every day, well, then you should meditate 2 hours. And you should read the writings of a saint for another hour, just so that, again, you have that perspective that you can begin to discern what is truthful in the news and what is not. And you're not going to be polluted by the news, because the way the news works in our society now, it is mostly just opinion, and it is mostly just people putting forth their political agendas.
Yeah.
Very few people just want the truth as it is.
Yes, I agree with you completely.
I even suggest to people that it's good to take a day and turn your cell phones off, turn your computers off, and just, you don't have to be meditating the whole day, but just put the noise of the world aside And then there's, again, an inner stillness, an inner quietness that develops. And then you can hear the whispering of God in your own conscience and in your own soul. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So, Swami, are there any, before we close, are there any final thoughts you want to share on this?
I would like to, because we talk about similarities between the Ten Commandments and yamas and niyamas. I would mention, because the yamas are mostly related to the Ten Commandments, but if we go to the Sermon of the Mountain, the blessed are all those, we can really see the similarities also between the niyamas. For instance, one niyama is contentment, santosha. And if we read in the gospel, blessed are those who are meek, for they shall inherit the earth. So, for instance, pureness, blessed are those who are pure in heart, for they shall see God. Or blessed are those who are poor in spirit, for there is the kingdom of heaven. And this is to surrender completely to God and Guru. And it is called the Ishvara Pranidhana. So we really see how the Old Testament and the Gospel together with the words of Jesus complete the whole message that already the rishis in India developed. So I'd like to underline these beautiful similarities.
Yeah, what I like to say to people about the Beatitudes, as well as the yamas and the niyamas, is that they really embody metaphysical truths. You talked about the 4 laws of physics that guide the physical universe.
Yes.
The yamas and the niyamas, and particularly Jesus's Beatitudes, they really represent metaphysical truths. They are inviolable. They are true everywhere. So, for example, when Jesus said, I think the very first Beatitude is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. What he's saying is that if we can empty ourselves of our attitudes, our prejudices, our ideologies, and really let go of them, then we begin to see the kingdom of heaven. We begin to experience the kingdom of God. It works. It's a truth that works. It's spiritual science. It's metaphysical science.
It is. It is. It is really scientific.
Yes.
I agree 100%.
Like one of the yamas is non-possessiveness. I think is that one of the yamas or the niyamas? It's one of the yamas. And
Aparigraha. Yes, it's the yama.
Yes. And you can look at it in a minimalistic way. Okay, I can't possess things. But if you look at it in a deeper way, and I'm going to connect it to something that Jesus said, that my possessions do not belong to me. They're gifts from God.
It's a gift, yeah.
And they also belong to God. And they're to be used for truth, beauty, and goodness. They're to be used to serve not only ourselves and our families, but all of humanity. So parallel to that is when Jesus said, the measure that you give is the measure that you receive. It will come back to you overflowing, pressed down, overflowing into your lap. He's giving us a metaphysical truth that if you give love, then love comes back to you multiplied.
Yeah, it is true.
And just think about who are the people that have the most love coming towards them. They're the people that give the love away. So what we see in these yamas and the niyamas, the commandments, and particularly in the Beatitudes, are these metaphysical truths that work. They're spiritual science. They work everywhere and at all times.
Yeah. I don't know why now it comes to me, the question that somebody put to Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive? No, and he said, not 7, but 7,
Yes.
4, 7.
7 times 70.
777. So it means the forgiveness is also one basic of the whole yamas and niyamas, because we cannot go forward without forgiving. Otherwise, the past is always coming back.
Yeah, to the degree that we are in unforgiveness, our spiritual arteries are clogged. God's grace cannot pour through.
Yeah.
In a very similar way, what I say to people, and I'm just really paraphrasing Jesus, is there ever a reason to not love somebody?
Yeah.
Is there ever a reason to not give love? No, there's never a reason. Now, you have to understand what real love is. Love doesn't mean you're always going to be feeling warm feelings towards somebody. Love does not mean you're going to let somebody walk all over you. Love is serving the highest good of the other person. Now, this is where truth and love come together.
Yeah.
If we don't have a sense of what the highest good is, then how do we know how to love them? Loving somebody isn't always giving them permission to do whatever they want. It's not just making them feel good about themselves. That loving is somebody is serving the highest good. So we have to have a sense of what the highest good is. And these truths that are found in the 10 Commandments, the Yamas and the Niyamas, the Beatitudes of Jesus, they tell us what the highest good is. So you can't have love without truth, or it's not love. And you can't have truth without love. They go together. They're flip sides of the same coin. I have to know what is best for myself to love myself, but I have to know what is best for somebody else. And that is the application of this Dharma, these divine truths.
Yes. Wonderful. I agree.
Yes.
Completely.
So, Swami, just before we close, why don't you just say a little bit about your foundation and the work you do in India, because it is so good. It is, you live this Dharma. You live them so well in your life, and you manifest them, the love and the truth. If you can say a little bit about your foundation and the work you do.
Yes, I will say the motivation. This is, I started to help the school in India, in Puri, actually. We started with a school of a lepers colony where the children were not allowed to go to school. And I would say that the joy I received from the children, seeing that their lives were changing so much, motivated my whole life to go farther and farther and trying to help more and more children in their education, because education is also part of the yamas and niyamas, because this is destroying ignorance. Education gives a new opportunity for each life. So we have now more than 1,200 children in several schools. The main one is in Puri, and then also in Odisha, it's the state. We have 3 more schools. They are working with girls, handicapped girls, and girls who were working on the streets, let's say, and the red zone, like in Bengal. Unfortunately, there are, near the cities, there are red zones where the children grew up, and we try to help them to come out of this environment. And now we have also a project with the Tibetan children in Ladakh, near the border with the Tibet. And it's also so beautiful to see how they develop, how different they are, and how beautiful at the same time they are. For their whole way of living and their traditions, of course. And yes, tell me.
Well, there was something you said at the very beginning that I think is really important, that this work that you do, this dharmic work, it brings you joy.
Oh, definitely.
And I want to just connect that to the truth. A wise spiritual mentor once said this to me. He said, don't seek happiness. Don't even seek joy. He said, seek the truth and live the truth in your life. Live the Dharma in your life, and you will have more joy than you will know what to do with.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah, when we make happiness the goal, it's kind of like nailing Jello to a tree. It doesn't stick.
Yeah.
But when we live our lives according to these Dharma truths, we have more happiness and joy than we know what to do with.
Yeah, because we receive hundreds or thousand times more than what we give. It's true.
Yes. Anything else you want to say about your foundation, Swami?
I was asked if during the COVID time we had problems, and I would say I thank you everybody in the Assisi Institute, because the donation, instead of decreasing, increased, even if I was not able to travel. So I want to really express my gratitude to all the sponsor and the Assisi Institute, to you personally, of course. And well, what can I say? I love you.
Swami, we have a number of wonderful Swamis in the Assisi Institute, Purnima, Muktima, Daimananda, Shantima, but you are the Swami of the Assisi Institute.
Thank you.
And we do give to you, but you give so much more to us. Your love and your light and your music and your truth and your beauty, it blesses us every day of the year. And you are my dearest elder spiritual brother.
Thank you.
I love you, and we love you from the bottom of our hearts. So I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast.
Thank you.
I hope it blesses everyone. And Swami, do you want to close it with Yogananda's prayer, or do you want me to close it?
Okay, I guess. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, all divine gurus of our tradition, Saint Francis, Santa Clara, oh, may thy light shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion, and may we be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you, Swami, and thank you, everybody that has tuned in. If you like this podcast, please give it a like. Please feel free to make a comment. And again, if you liked it, forward it to your friends. Thank you. God bless you. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.